Hi, and I just have a look at your draft here now. I know we talked about this in class on Tuesday, so hopefully you've made some progress with it. The document's well laid out, and you've got your table of contents working well. I suppose my concern is that it's still quite vague. If you submitted it for ethical approval at the moment, it wouldn't be granted because there's just not enough information in here. And I am conscious of the fact that you have to submit it for ethics by the end of next week, so the clock is on us. So I'd encourage you to crack on with it now and put the time into it and try and get it sorted as quick as you can, because otherwise it's going to significantly delay your you in semester 2. So I'd try and avoid kind of very broad general statements. For example, you've said nurses in Ireland learn the importance of systems such as step-by-step checklists in practice. They may or may not. It's not a day one competence. It's not included in the curriculum at Acavine. So that actually may not be the case. So I'd leave it out. And it's possible to become less diligent. That's, again, a very sweeping statement. It's not a lack of diligence that necessarily leads to people not using them. They may not be aware of them, or there's lots of other barriers. So I think I would just start with surgical safety checklists are implemented to ensure that checks are made to allow for the safest surgical procedure possible. Okay, and then your abstract is going to look at the attitudes of vet nurses. The role of the vet nurse, I think you need to start off here by defining what you mean by checklist. So you're talking about them when you haven't actually said what they are, and then you can go on and talk about how nurses might use them. And I think as well, you're kind of implying that if you use a checklist, you won't have complications, which isn't the case. You're using a checklist to try and reduce complications. So just be clear on that. They're not a magic bullet. They're just one useful tool. When you said research is shown, then you have to put in the research. So if you're going to refer to research, you must cite it then. And I think you said this use of surgical checklist is so simple. What do you mean by simple? They do add time, and if you're using a bad checklist, is that better than no checklist, or is it actually going to cause more problems? Does it risk giving you a false sense of security? So just be careful. Your literature review is very broad and sweeping. You're making lots of statements and not really backing them up. So I think you just need to take a more refined approach to it and really focus on what is the literature telling us. Okay. Impact on practice. So you're just pointing out they might help. I don't know if they lead to greater client confidence. Clients won't know that you use them. It's not on the consent form. You're not going to tell every client. So I think, again, I'd probably take that one out as well. Then your aims and objectives. You want to address the attitudes. I think maybe explore the attitudes of vet nurses regarding the use of surgical safety checklists. So put in your research questions here as well in your literature review. I think you're making a misconception here about the Orfeld study. They didn't show a statistically significant difference. That doesn't mean they're not recommending that you don't use them. Okay, they're two separate things. The Orfeld study does not provide evidence for not using a checklist. The conclusion is not that they should not be used. What they found was that they weren't able to show a difference between the two groups, but there was reasons for that. The study time was short and the number involved was relatively small and it was a single site. So again, just avoid shooting yourself in the foot here. It's important that you're really clear on the conclusions that you draw from the literature. In this case, you're incorrectly appraising the evidence, which is going to obviously weaken your argument. And obviously, there's lots more literature to be put in, so I think that needs a lot of work now to get it to the point where you're making your argument. And then your methodology is going to be a prospective cross-sectional survey, putting cross-sectional because you're only doing it once, to collect quantitative data about perceptions. Okay. Again, you need to define your checklist. What one are you going to use and why? Are there more than one you might use? And then your references aren't correctly laid out. These must be formatted as per the DKT Guide to Harvard Referencing. So it's surname listed alphabetically by first author, and then you need to put in the publisher and the title of either the journal or the book in italics and so on. So make sure and look back at your Guide to Harvard Referencing. These need to be correct. Otherwise you're risking plagiarism. And you're in your award year now, so plagiarism is a major deal. Just don't go there. It's not worth it. And then you've got your draft. So again, I think you need to define for your survey respondents what your checklist is. The other thing is you haven't mentioned ethics at all, so you'll have to put into your proposal the ethical considerations, and then how will you manage ethics in your survey. You'll have to put your information about the survey and consent as the first page. I presume you're going to use Microsoft Forms, but you haven't specified that. And we talked about how we might change the survey around a bit on Tuesday. And then you have obviously got your application form to fill in as well. You're also going to need the checklist for the survey, for the ethics application, so the ethics checklist, and then your information leaflet and consent form will be condensed into a format that will appear on the front page of your survey. So I'm conscious now that the time is cracking on. You need to really get stuck into this now and get it done, because as it currently stands, it wouldn't either pass the module or you won't get ethical approval for it in its current format. So I'm just conscious of you're on the clock. So we'll go over this on Tuesday, but I can't do it for you. You're going to have to get stuck into it now and really try and get it sorted fairly quickly. So best of luck with that, and we'll discuss it next week. Thanks.